Hi guys, we wanted to do a video tonight talking about a lotus birth and why we're choosing to do a lotus birth and what it is. So we wanted to do this video to get other people to think more deeply about their birthing choices. So if we want the world to be a more peaceful, better place, I really think that it starts with the birth of babies and how we bring them into the world. And most people have never even heard of a lotus birth before. It's pretty uncommon. And the name actually, it's pretty new, the name of it. It came from, her name was Claire, I wrote it down, Claire Lotus Day. And in 1974, I'm pretty sure, she was studying chimps at the time and she was pregnant. And she realized that the chimps would not sever the cord of, like, the umbilical cord, and they were one of the animals that did not eat the placenta. They just waited until the cord fell off and then they would plant the placenta. So that's what a lotus birth is. You don't clamp the cord, you don't cut the cord. You leave the baby completely attached to it through the umbilical cord until it falls off by itself. And that process usually takes between 3 to 10 days. And the cord will dry up and then it'll fall off by itself. And when it falls off, you're just left with a normal looking belly button. And one of the reasons why we really wanted to do a lotus birth, why it appealed to us, was the fact that it was so non-invasive. So with this pregnancy, we really wanted to do what was most gentle and non-invasive as possible, and
natural.
Yeah, and what was most natural. And when you think about it, like when the cord is cut, babies physically are in distress. They cry, their body scrunches up. You can just tell that it is painful to them. And that was one thing that I really remembered from my daughter's birth. I did have a C-section with her, but they were cutting her cord over to the side, and I was over just looking at her, and when they cut her cord, she started crying even harder than how hard she was crying when they took her out of me. And that was just one thing that I remember, and they told me that she was fine, that she couldn't really feel anything, and I just kind of knew. I mean, you just know that by certain cries and stuff that obviously they can feel it. It's the same thing with circumcision. They say that, you know, they won't remember it, or they don't really feel it how we do, which we know that that's completely idiotic to think that way. So that was one thing we really wanted to do, was just something that was very gentle. And with a lotus birth, another thing that you do is it makes the family slow down. So you're not going to be moving the baby as much, obviously, because it's going to be connected to the placenta. So movement is at a minimal. So really the mom and the baby just have this really close bonding, especially the first few days, where all they're doing is sleeping and then the mom's feeding the baby. And that's pretty much it. The baby can pretty much stay in one spot. That really appealed to us too. Just taking things slower, not having as many people over. That was another thing. Usually when people have a baby, they have, like, you know, everybody comes over to see the baby. Especially, I mean, as soon as I was home, even when I was in the hospital, a ton of people came to see me in the hospital, and then as soon as I got home from the hospital, you know, everybody's coming over to see the baby too. And one thing we wanted with this baby was to just have, you know, like our family, like Korey and then our daughter and then the baby, just at least for 2 weeks, where we can just get used to each other as a new family without all these like interruptions and stuff like that. and just like the energy of people too, you know, people give off certain energies, and that was one thing. We just wanted to keep it just between us. And I think that's something that a lot of people have lost with, especially with doing hospital births, I think, because it's such like a public thing. You even take, you know, the baby goes in for all these checkups, and even before they're a few weeks old, you take them to the doctor, you're doing all these things, bringing them around, and it's really a time for them to just like get used to the new world that they're in, and they shouldn't be shuffled around and having all these people hold them and touch them. It should just be about bonding and like learning from this world slowly. It's just a process.
Another thing about people coming over or seeing your baby when it's first born is your baby is they've just been born to this world and are not used to everything that is in this world, all the chemicals and stuff that are in this world. And most people, unfortunately, in our society are literally full of chemicals externally, because the fragrances, the washes they use, the lotions they put on, the clothes they wear, the makeup. I mean, there's just a lot of chemicals all over people, and you don't want that near your new baby at all. So it's definitely not healthy for them.
Right. So then another thing with the Lotus Birth, I was going to do delayed cord clamping and cutting, and then it led to the Lotus Birth. But the delayed cord clamping and cutting is very beneficial. I just think the Lotus Birth takes it even farther, which Korey is going to talk about the more spiritual aspect of it. From a medical standpoint, there's not really a reason to do a Lotus Birth, is what they say. We see it from a different perspective, but the delayed, you know, they're getting the rest of the nutrients and the blood. There's a ton of blood still left in the placenta and even just in the cord. And when it's cut so soon, they're missing out on a lot of that. And they have actually linked how they always say that the babies will drop weight in, you know, like within the first few days of them being born, and then they'll like gain it back. They always say, oh, it's just because they're getting used to, you know, like being in this world and eating and stuff like that. It's actually, they think that it is because they're missing out on that essential blood that's still in the placenta and in the cord that isn't able to be transferred to them. And I don't know the exact numbers, but there's quite a bit of blood that they're missing out on. And a lot of people now are using cord blood banking, which is total bullshit. They say how great, you know, it is because it can, you know, help cure them if they're sick in the future, or a family member or something like that, which it doesn't make sense that you would not allow your newborn baby that's just coming into this world to get all of those essential things that they say are so important. You're gonna keep it and save it just in case something comes up or something happens. And I've actually read a few things where they're not even storing it, they're using it for other things. They found it in like beauty products and like anti-aging products and stuff like that. So
in medication.
Yeah, medications, prescriptions.
There's receipts showing that they are selling them to pharmaceutical companies.
Right. So they're not even being stored like they tell you to. It's also very expensive. And it just doesn't make sense if you think about it, that you would, you know, not allow your newborn to get the rest of that for their start of life here. You would want them to get the best possible start, and you're robbing them from that by cutting the cord and saving it for something else that might not even happen. So that part doesn't make sense at all. The last thing is that it is hurtful to the baby. So I did talk about that before, like with my daughter, but it is very you know, it is very invasive. You're cutting something off of the baby that is a part of them. It shows, inside the womb that the baby and the placenta are both they both start growing at the same exact time, and the baby is with this organ for the whole entire time they're in your body, and they're connected to it spiritually and physically. So they're already, being born into this environment that's so unnew to them, and they are confused, and it's it's a stressful time, but it puts even more stress on their body when something's being cut and when they're losing that extra blood and the nutrients and everything that's still left in the placenta. So that's pretty much all I have to say about it. You can say the rest.
To add to that, it should not be a stressful time, though. It should be completely 100% peaceful and relaxing, which is exactly how the baby plans it. It's just not how it turns out in our society for the most part. Birthing is very spiritual in general when you think about it. They don't even have a way medically, which medically just means physically to this world, how the placenta and the baby even start to form inside the mother. They have no idea. But that's because it's not something that can be explained medically. It's spiritually. It's not from something that you can see with your eyes and that you can observe. It's a feeling. It's something that's happening in you, and the mother can actually feel it happening and know when it's happening if they have high enough sense of their feelings, or their intuition, some people call it, their sixth sense. And the placenta is viewed as a chakra. We all have chakras in our body, which are energy centers, where we draw in energy into our body from our spirit that's around us. And that's what makes our body animate, because we are spiritual beings, and the energy is what actually makes us go. And through the chakras is how the energy comes into this physical world. And the placenta is the baby's first chakra. It's where the baby is getting literally all of the energy to be able to actually create the baby. That's where the life form comes in of the new spirit that you're birthing into a baby. The spirit chose you, and they chose you for a specific reason, and they go into the placenta. So when you cut the cord of the placenta before the baby wants it to fall off, to be disconnected, you're harming your baby in a way that you cannot see medically, because it is a feeling, it is a spiritual sense. And I'm sure that someone with a high feeling would be able to sense that a baby is harmed if you do delayed cord clamping still, because they did not choose to drop that cord yet. And everything about our existence we choose to do no matter what, and it's the same for the baby. It might look like we're the ones choosing it, but they chose all of this before they even came down to this world. And the problem is there's other intervening energies here that change the flow of how they set it out to be. And it harms them in the end, and it causes them to lose part of themselves, literally. When you disconnect the baby from the placenta, you're now allowing that spirit, that energy that is in the placenta, to completely transfer into the baby and to become whole. So you are cutting part of their spirit and their energy off right there, which is making them an incomplete being, which is why we have so many issues in our society, because it causes a fractionness inside of us. It makes us divided. And basically, all of us are looking for our other halves. We're looking for the rest of our spirit, the rest of our energy when we're here. The problem is we're all looking externally to material things for the most part, because that's where we're shown to go, instead of looking at ourselves and inside ourselves to figure out why we are like how we are and how we actually get to be whole again. And if you do not cut the cord and you let it fall off naturally, none of that will happen to your baby because they will be whole. They'll be whole from the very beginning. And there are actually many stories and accounts of when you do allow the whole entire process to carry out on its own, the babies have a insane amount of intelligence that most of us don't even have when we're adults. Their feeling and intuition is just off the charts. And
they're very like calm and peaceful, and they really don't cry or like when they grow into like their toddlerhood and everything, they're just very like whole beings, people describe them as. And I want to say, before I forget, a really great book is Placenta, The Forgotten Chakra by Robin Lim. We can link it below, right? And then another one is Lotus Birth, and I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce her name, so we'll put that one below too. But those are two really good books.
And when the thing is, the baby already knows how to communicate, it just doesn't know how to communicate in our English language. It can communicate on a higher level, though, that many of us cannot reach because we're not connected with ourselves. We're not whole within ourselves. But once they are able to communicate with us through this language, they know things that they should not know because they know them from other lives that they have had and other experiences that they have had, not in this world even necessarily, because they are whole and they know everything about themselves from the time that spirit first came into existence up until they just entered back into this world for whatever reason they chose to. And that's one of the really main reasons that we're doing a Lotus Birth, as they call it, is because it allows your child to be whole from the beginning. They don't have to go through what everyone else has to go through right now and trying to figure out what they're doing here and why they're here and who they actually are. They already know that, and they can just set out to do what they came here to do without worrying about any of that. They won't be distracted by all of this shit that's put in front of us that keeps us from figuring out who we are, a lot of us, through our whole entire lifetime here. And it's really the only way that I see for us to change our society. You have to start at the beginning, and the beginning is birth, and it even goes before when the baby comes out, which we will be making a video about. But if you're not birthing your baby into the world the right way, they're not going to be able to carry on with themselves the right way either, because we are the guides. We are not here to tell them what to do. We are here to just allow them to come into this world in the most natural and wholesome way that we know. And if we're not doing that, we're doing our children a huge disservice by bringing them into a broken world for the most part then. And that's really all I have to say on that. Anything you want to add?
No, this has been, I believe that this has been the way that people used to, like long time ago, used to do births. But one thing about Claire Day Lotus Day, she was just the one that brought this name like recently into our society because that was just something that she noticed. So even though the name is something that's newer, I think that it was just something that we really used to practice all the time. And then once everything became so medicalized, and especially when like doctors came into the picture and stuff like that, it's really about convenience for the doctors now and not, what's good for the mother, because they're even cutting the cord before the mother is able to deliver the placenta, which is crazy. But they don't want to wait for, it takes too long. So that's all I really have to say about it.
And it even goes farther than convenience for the doctors, because in the end, the doctors are doing what they were taught in school. Most of them, they're doing what they think is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
if you really think about it, if you want to control a society and bend them to your will and how you want the society to behave, you need to start with the birthing process. You need to make sure that it's a broken process that harms the new baby so that they can never become whole to become what they want to do here and what they came to become here. That's the only way you can control people here, is if you trick them into thinking that they don't have their own choice at every step of the way, which a lot of us don't think we do, and we really can do anything at any point that we choose to do it once we choose to do it and put our full energy towards it. And I really see that that's why birthing is how it is right now, is so that our society is broken and chaos like it is right now. It's living in hell for the most part when you look around at what you see on TV and news and even music, TV shows and movies and all the different entertainment outlets. It's all chaos, and it's all built to keep us divided still as well. There's nothing there that shows you, go look inside yourself and become whole again so that we can turn this around. That's not the point of what we are in here right now. The point is to keep us divided, which is why the pregnancies are exactly how they are and get carried out how they are, and why there are regulations that these are things that you have to follow, which they're not at all, but that's how they teach them to you, so that you don't think you have a choice, when in the end you have every choice that you want. It's just how far and how much energy are you willing to put into it to make sure that your choice actually happens. And if you put all of your energy into it, it will absolutely happen every single time. And it may seem like it's not at some points, but you keep doing it, it will. I promise you that. We are infinite beings, and we have infinite energy to put towards everything that we want. It just comes down to us making that priority to do it. And
knowing that you can.
Mm-hmm, and knowing that you can. And with the how we used to birth, we never used to have doctors like we have now. We never used to have medical facilities like we have now. Nothing was sterilized and stuff like that is now. None of this would even be possible in how in ancient civilizations lived. None of this would have been possible to even exist when you go back to in India, in Egypt, in the Native Americans that used to live in America, in all these ancient civilizations that we are shown. None of this would have ever existed, especially because they were spiritual beings. They lived with the land, we were shown. They lived within themselves. They did not harm animals. They did not harm each other. They lived in harmony with everything, with nature, which starts with birthing. So there's no way that they would cut the cord off when their baby is born.
All right. Mm-hmm. So we'll be making other videos about natural pregnancy, natural birthing, just because it's something I'm very, very passionate about, and we're obviously going through it right now. So we'll be posting more of those videos soon.
And you can go to our website at naturalprana.net, where Nicki has a blog there. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe. And I also have a video that I will link in the description that gives my thoughts on the Lotus Birth more. That's a little bit longer than this one, but I talk more about the actual industry behind it all, because that's really what I like to look at and analyze. But that's it for this one. Have a good night, everyone.